Shalom.
Hi.
Welcome back, all five of y'all. Here for our Daniel study. The reason we're doing this is because we love Daniel. I love Daniel, and I've read through it many times. And each time I read through it, there's so much more to pull out of it. And I said this before, and I think in the last video, this is not going to be a comprehensive study. So if you're here and you're like, they left this out, of course we're going to leave it out. But we're going to leave something out every time. I was just reading this morning the 7th and 14th vision of Daniel, which if we put that in there, it would, triple this video and how long it would take.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not even reading Bell and the Dragon and Susanna. We might incorporate some of those because we did talk about the prayer of Azariah
Last week.
So there's just so much that we could throw in here, but yeah, I think the whole reason is just to kind of dig through what I believe is the most detailed prophecy in all of Scripture, and that goes for extra biblical texts as well. Daniel follows at least the official history timeline that we find in official history. It follows it pretty close. There are some changes in official history where they tried to have Messiah. And they've changed some things in Daniel, but pretty much, this is just such a detailed prophecy, and I think that's why I really love going through it. And two, I said this before. I'm just reiterating it. If you're new and you just come here to jumped into our Daniel study, the reason we're doing this too is because I have in my Bible, in Daniel, I have back in 2016 I put Obama. And I put Trump and all these things because I fully believe that Daniel 11 was talking about Obama at that time. I was like, Obama's the Antichrist, and he probably still is an Antichrist. There are many Antichrists, but having that written down is like, man, it's like now I see it in a totally different light. If we would just read a lot of these prophecies, especially in the prophets, in Daniel, if we just read them literally. I do think they can be kind of transferred to different times.
Like kind of duality?
Yeah. There would be duality in in many of the prophecies. I don't think that they were, this stuff is written for our example.
Yes.
So half the time, I do believe it's talking about a specific period of time that happened or that is to happen.
Yeah.
But it also could relate to other times.
Yeah.
But if we would just read these very literal, I was just watching something, and they were talking about Isaiah 65, and they're talking about a kind of believing the millennial kingdom is still to come. It's a futuristic event, and it literally is saying the ships of Tarshish are coming, and it's like, okay, why don't we read that? And it says, we're going to be bringing frankincense and myrrh to Jerusalem. I'm just telling you, like, no one's going to be traveling and sailing in ships bringing frankincense to Jerusalem next year. This is something that has already happened. I'm not saying that they wouldn't.
Yeah, but I think there's evidence.
There is
in historical
evidence.
Accounts
Absolutely.
of other books that actually say that that's happened.
Yeah, and not in kind of weird history.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what. Well, yeah, it's history, but it's not. It's history that's kind of hidden and pushed to the side.
Yeah.
It's not mainstream history. It's not what you're going to be taught in school or even in college or anything like that. They're not going to teach this stuff. But there is evidence of ships coming from Tarshish, bringing frankincense, and all of the Gentiles coming to Jerusalem for a pilgrimage for Sukkot. These things were happening, and they were sacrificing and doing these things, the things that are spoken about and prophesied within Scripture. So that's why I think if we would just read it for what it says, we can go through that. I might differ from my opinion in Daniel 2 years from now. Who knows? But
that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think we should be willing to change and be able to read it and say, oh, what if this? And kind of.
We need to be moldable, like the clay in the potter's hands.
Yeah.
Moldable.
Be able to read these prophecies in maybe a
Yes.
different way and to seek a different meaning for them because they are kind of hidden and they are kind of vague a lot of the times.
Yeah, and we weren't there. I was saying this the other day, even the prophets didn't know a lot of the
Yeah.
times what Yah was speaking to them.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't know. They didn't fully understand what Yah was saying, or they didn't fully understand the prophecy or the vision, or, you think about John, I mean, and Revelation. I mean, my goodness, do you think he knew every single thing that was,
He didn't.
was
And
happening?
we were just
in this-
reading Ecclesiastes, and
Yeah.
Solomon says twice towards the end, he's saying it's impossible to know the ways of God. It's completely
Yes.
impossible to know why he does certain things or what he's going to do, to know it all,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially nowadays, we have so many prophets here on YouTube. I'm saying prophets, so many people prophesying
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube and saying, this is what's going to happen, this is what happened, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's important to take it with a grain of salt. There is something good to be pulled from these people. From everyone. It's in the Colburn, I think, or it might be in Gospel of Colady, where it says, no man is fully righteous, nor is no man fully evil.
Yeah.
So even an evil man can say something righteous.
Or can do righteous things.
Or can do truth, yeah. Or even a righteous person
Nebuchadnezzar's
can
great-
say evil things.
Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar's a great example.
Yeah, we're about to read that. So, but anyways, I forgot what I was going to say about that. But I was just saying, if we have so many people on YouTube talking, us included. If we come on here and say it's 100% millennial kingdom happened, 100% all this,
Turn us off.
yeah, well, you don't have to turn us off, but just investigate it. If anyone's saying 100%. I've said this before, they haven't read enough. And the reason is because the more I read, I mean, we have I love extra biblical texts. And I try to collect them as much as I can because, things on our phone are not going to be forever. We're going to eventually have to get rid of our phones. It's getting closer and closer, it seems like, and off of here. But having these tangible, letters, writings, whatever they are, whether or not we believe they're inspired or not, there might be something to gain from it. And reading them, like I said, I was reading the 14th vision of Daniel today. There are so many things that, new puzzle pieces to try to put into the puzzle that's going to it's so hard to figure out exactly what happened or is to come. So for us to say 100%, just if you're new here or if you've watched us for a while, we are not 100% that the millennial kingdom has happened. About 98%, but
if you've watched any of our other videos, you'll hear me say, like, and I still want to get this for you, is the t-shirt that says I have a theory, and on the back it says, but I could be wrong.
Yes,
that's kind of our motto that we stick to with a lot of these things, like our interpretations of prophecy, our understanding of millennial kingdom. Those things, there's a lot of theorizing that goes on, in this gray space. A lot of this is so gray.
I mean, I was against millennial kingdom at the beginning, and just investigating it and seeking, really what Scripture says. Going through every single prophecy, the advent of Messiah is immediately preceding the millennial kingdom, meaning the millennial kingdom comes right after the advent of Messiah in every single prophecy. I don't see. I might be misspeaking there. Is that word misspeaking?
Yeah,
misspoken. But anyways, I might be saying the wrong thing, but I don't think every single prophecy I have read about the advent of Messiah, once he's revealed, the millennial kingdom begins. It's like right there. Now, we're going to read here in Daniel. We need to get going. Yeah. We're going to read here in Daniel, the millennial kingdom's forever. I won't say the millennial kingdom's forever. The kingdom is forever. The kingdom existed before Messiah.
Not the 1,000-year period where the devil is bound.
Sure, that is obviously not forever within Scripture. There is a time when that ends. It's literally called the millennial kingdom, so it only lasts 1,000 years. Yeah. But the kingdom of Yahweh, there are two kingdoms, a spiritual kingdom and a fleshly kingdom. Both should be as one on earth as this is in heaven. Not the axiom, as below, so above, whatever they say. That I think is something totally different with Sheol. But this is on earth as this is in heaven. This is literally the prayer that Messiah taught us, to bring the kingdom here to earth. It was our duty. We got to read something. Remind me to come back to the Gospel of Clay.
That's what I was about to say.
Should I go read it now?
Yeah, let's read it now.
Pause.
Let's pause.
All right, I wasn't planning on reading this, but since it kind of came up in conversation, this is from the Gospel of Calais, but this book is the Book of Nazarene right there. But you can find this free online.
And it's called the Gospel of Calais. That's how we refer to it.
Yeah.
When we first found it as a PDF, it's weird that I think everybody kind of started finding it at the same time, which is interesting.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
But yeah, you can find the PDF. I've linked it in a couple of different places on some of our videos, recommended reads. So, anyways.
This is all about the kingdom. I mean, and this is a, well, okay. There are many gospels. Okay, I don't know if I need to go into that, but let me just read this. This is amazing. Yeshua said, "There is the kingdom of the Ruach and the kingdom of the flesh. Yahuwah rules the first himself, but the second he rules through his viceroy, man. But man tries to set himself up as an independent ruler, making his own laws and setting aside those of his sovereign. When the viceroy ceases to rebel and governs in accord with the decrees of the sovereign, that will be the rule of Elohim."
Amazing.
So I think it's amazing. There's so many millennial kingdom verses in here talking about the kingdom coming, because that was the gospel. The good news is the gospel of the kingdom. The good news was, hey, your king has arrived, and he's going to, as Isaiah says, magnify the Torah in the kingdom. The whole kingdom is about the Torah. If you don't follow Torah, if the kingdom's still to come, man, that's going to be the law.
Yeah.
If you don't follow it now,
you will,
or you're not going to be able to take part in it. And that's something. There are some promises within the prophets, some, destruction, some horrible curses that come upon those who will not keep the Torah in the millennial kingdom. So, anyways, I think that's amazing, because it was our job to bring about the millennial kingdom. That's why you have people dying for it. That's why even 500 years after Messiah, people are still being, just brutally murdered to bring on the kingdom, because they actually believed it, and they saw the king, and they knew, oh, this is our chance. This is how we do it. Yeah. And they did bring on the kingdom, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and that made me think of that verse in Sirach that says, "Strive for the truth unto death, and Yahuwah will fight for you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's truly what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, these men and women, they strived for the truth. They guarded the Torah with their lives. They guarded the testimony of Yeshua with their lives. Ultimately died for it, but then, Yah's will be done. He came and, he conquered all of that.
Yeah.
He brought on, that was Messiah. He came and with a sword.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of bloodshed to happen. Yeah. It wasn't total peace. And this is what is continually prophesied, but the kingdom is forever. Sure. You ask any Christian today, who's ruling? Who's sitting on the right hand of the throne? Who's on the throne ruling? Who's our king?
Right now.
Messiah Husha. Messiah is our king. He still is. So if the millennial kingdom hasn't happened, if it has to happen, if it's going to happen, whatever, he's our king. He is ruling right now. And it's our job to bring on the kingdom. If we're expecting the millennial kingdom to come, it's our job to be bringing it on. And you don't bring that on through lawlessness. You bring that on through the Torah, through the teaching of the Torah, through the obedience in the Torah, with love, with faith, testimony, Yeshua. Like these things, it's something. I'm talking way too much right now, because we got to read. Mm-hmm. But there's more to just following the rule book. There's way more to just following the rule book. I think a lot of times, Christianity has swung way too far to the grace side, and have forgotten completely the instructions of righteousness. They don't even know what righteousness is anymore. Mm-hmm. That's not all Christianity, but the majority of modern Christianity, this is what they teach. Torah, coming back to the Torah, Hebrew roots, whatever you want to call them, Torah observance, Messianics, whatever, they have swung way too far to the Torah and to just the instructions. This is all we have to do is the instructions. Well, wait a second. There's some sort of balance that has to be found here, because the teaching of the Torah is not everything. There's more to it. There's more to it to figure out how. I'm trying to word it in the right way so people don't mistake what I'm saying, but learning to keep the commandments and learning to keep the instructions with love, with a balance in them, is way harder. Yeah. That's where it really gets hard. It's not hard to stop eating pork, but it is hard to learn to love your neighbor and to love your family members who continue to eat pork. That's very hard.
Well, go on, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you go
Well, I
ahead.
was just saying, we were studying this out with the boys, Galatians 5, and we're memorizing, or planning to memorize Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit, as if, well, we know it. We memorized it when we were a kid, when our boys' ages, but there's a verse before that, and everybody knows it, but because we've all misinterpreted it if you've been in Christianity long enough, that says the entire Torah is completed in just one word, that you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And so Paul's quoting Leviticus. We know he's quoting Leviticus here. But I think that's important what you're saying, that the Torah is completed. It's not abolished. It's not done away with. It's fulfilled. It's truly, the Torah is being written on our hearts. I don't think it's fully written on our hearts because we still sin and we're still teaching one another. We know that. But it is a balance, and it is, it's something that we have had to learn sort of the hard way, I think, over the last few years. But Yah has taught us by example to love others, not to accept or be tolerant of their sin, but to love them in spite of it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what Paul is saying here. And you either bear the fruit of the Spirit or you bear the fruit of, or the fruit of wickedness, basically. And for us, it's like as you read through these fruits of the Spirit, it's kind of what you're talking about with love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, long suffering, all those things. That only comes from, truly like following the law. Following the Torah.
Yeah.
And those things are the outcome of it. Those things are the outcome of loving Yah and loving others. That's literally what Yeshua is saying when he says, on which all other commands hang. Like all other commands hang on those. You do those well. And loving others is no problem. If you love others, keeping the Torah is no problem. It is such a balance. Anyways, I just thought of that verse when you were saying that, because it is hard to read that and not think, oh, yeah, Torah's done away with. All I have to do is love my neighbor,
Yeah.
But it's...
Well, it's like Yeshua said, true worshipers will worship in spirit and in truth. So even an atheist knows how to love and be gentle and meek, or even long-suffering, Even people who don't believe in the truth, and I say this all the time, the truth is Psalm 119, 142. The Torah is the truth.
Yeah.
It's literally the instruction manual for life. It's our righteousness. It's everything. This is what we do to be in truth. And then the next thing to do, once you receive that truth, once you receive the Torah and understand that you need to be keeping righteousness, you need to live like Messiah. Because Messiah not only was obedient to the Torah, but he had the fruits of the Spirit. So these are the true worshipers that can follow the truth and believe in it, just like, it's a different subject. But anyways, okay, all right, let's just stop. All right,
Yeah.
So, because we could keep going.
And I just will say, and that to me is the heart of why we're on here, is because everything comes back to that. Everything comes back to the whole duty of man. We just finished up Ecclesiastes. I implore you to go read that last chapter, because there's so much good in that. Beyond just that verse that we love, the conclusion of the matter is to fear Yah and keep his commands, the whole duty of mankind. But that, at the end of the day, is why we're on here. One day we may not be on here, and that's okay. But for now, we are told not to hide our light under a bush.
Yeah.
And we are going to be a light.
It's
for as
bushel
long
in
as, bushel,
the
I'm
KJV.
sorry. I don't know, okay.
KJV calls it a bushel.
Well, we're not supposed to hide our light under anything, under a rock, under a bush. And so that's why we're on here, is to be a light, to encourage other like-minded believers on this walk, because it is hard, it is narrow, and it's hard-pressed. But it's also, if you're new and you're curious about, what we believe and why we believe it, we've got a number of videos out there, but that's why we're on here. Everything comes back to that. Everything comes back to those two things.
And that light is Proverbs 6:23.
Oh, yeah.
The commandment is a lamp, and the Torah is the light.
Yeah.
That's our light. And, you'd also honestly don't, light's weird. You don't want to, some people aren't awake. So, when you go in and wake your kids up in the morning or whatever, you don't shine a light in their face.
If you're my dad, he did that when I was growing up.
Yeah.
He turned the light on to wake me up for school, and we'd start singing a big song.
And that people hate that.
Oh, it's so irritating.
So it's like, people who aren't awake, your family members or people around you, and that it's taken some time to learn that. You don't just go in and, shine a light in their face.
Gentleness.
Gentleness, yeah. Well, there you go. Gentleness, meekness, And there's a way to shine a light. Sometimes people don't want to, see it that much, but you need to light a path, light a way for people. And then when they're ready to see it, man, when you're in the dark on that path and they're like, hey, I'm on this path with you, then let your light shine. See, look, this is how we should go.
Let that cistern overflow.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into Daniel. Okay. This is going to be a long one.
Okay,
Did you want to talk about anything else before we go?
No. Let's just dive in. Let's go. This is probably 20 minutes at least, the intro. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to read. Stop me. Oops, we're in chapter 4. Okay. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth. Peace be increased to you.
Okay, stop real quick. This is all the key. This is everyone who dwells in the whole earth. We read this in the last chapter. The command to worship the image went across the whole earth.
Yes.
So Babylon's running the whole world, which is crazy. So I think a lot of these kingdoms were, even Greece, even Persia, all these kingdoms that are talked about, and Rome today. The beast who was not, and is again.
It sounds very familiar too, because it's like, and I'm not trying to Trump on Trump or anything like that, but that's kind of his proclamation, right? We're going into a golden age. I'm not comparing Nebuchadnezzar to Trump or saying there's any like-mindedness there, but
Babylon was the golden age,
But this is what Nebuchadnezzar is saying: peace be increased, and he's literally saying peace, and we're going to secure our borders and all these things. It's just an interesting parallel with the time that we're in. And just reading this right now. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And he was just given something called the Prince of Peace or something. They've done that before, though. But anyways.
Yeah. Okay, verse 2. I thought it good to declare the signs and wonders which the Most High Allah has worked for me. How great are his signs and how mighty his wonders. His reign is an everlasting reign, and his rulership is from generation to generation. I love that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. We said this before. I think it's 7 or 8 times. We've tried to been counting. We have been counting. So when we get to the end, we'll let you know. But 7 times in Daniel, it says that the kingdom is everlasting. Now, this is before Messiah shows up on scene.
Yeah.
The kingdom's here. This is the same kingdom, paradise, the city of Enoch. In the writings of Abraham, I think you have Shem who's going to this kingdom also in the Order of the Ancients. All these books, if you read Enoch, Enoch's in this city as well. This is paradise. This is his kingdom. This is New Jerusalem. It was established there. Messiah gets to sit down on the throne. That kingdom is forever. It never ends. It's still the kingdom we're looking forward to today. I cannot wait to go there. And I would never consider myself worthy. It's by the blood of Messiah, the Lamb who was slain.
Amen.
But the kingdom's forever. It never ends. Never ends. Just so everyone knows, the kingdom never ends. Perpetual. Okay.
Okay. Verse 4. We'll never get through this. It's fine. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and prospering in my palace. I saw a dream, and it frightened me, and the thoughts on my bed and the visions of my head alarmed me. So I issued a decree to bring in all the wise ones of Babel before me, to make known to me the interpretation of the dream. So the magicians, the astrologers, the Kasdim, and the diviners came in, and I related the dream to them, but its interpretation they did not make known to me. And at last Daniel, whose name is Belteshazzar, remember we talked about this in chapter 1, Belteshazzar, Bel, protect the king. That's what his Babylonian name means.
Yeah, all the names that were changed of him and his brethren, Hananiah,
Azariah, and
Mishael. Yeah, all of them were changed to give recognition to Baal.
Yeah.
And even Daniel himself. So it'd be interesting. Any of the Jews that were in the king's court, I bet they were all changed. There's probably way more than what we know of, just the 4. But we also learned they were brethren. They were brothers. They were all related.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just curious. Okay, I'll read. According to the name of my Allah came before me. According to the name of my Allah, there he goes. In him is the spirit of the set-apart Elohim. So I related the dream to him, saying, Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, which is interesting. He's considered the chief of the magicians. Because I know that's interesting that's Nebuchadnezzar's impression of Daniel.
Yeah.
Not a prophet, a magician.
Yeah.
Because I know that the spirit of the set-apart Elohim is in you, and no secret is too difficult for you. Explain to me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and its interpretation. Now the visions of my head on my bed were these. I looked and saw a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height great. The tree became great and strong, and its height reached to the heavens, and it was visible to the ends of the earth, of all the earth. That's a good flat earth verse, right?
Sure,
Or
it's
biblical
visible,
cosmology.
visible to the ends of the earth.
You can't do
Obviously,
that.
on a globe, you can't see beyond the curve.
Yeah.
There's many verses like this. It's like what we said before with prophecy. Just read literal. I mean, why can't we read scripture literal? We've been told our whole lives, no, that doesn't actually mean that. And why are we saying that? The only reason we're saying that is because we think we know what the truth is. That goes for history, that goes for science, biology, whatever. We think we know cosmology. We think we know what the truth is, and we're inputting our own bias, our own, modern 21st century thinking into the text. When everyone before us would have just read this as the ends of the earth. Oh, so you're that tree that we can see from Antarctica. You're that tree that we can see from wherever on the earth. And of course, proof is coming out. I think the longest long distance, like 273 miles that you can see. It's pretty crazy.
This goes beyond my understanding and knowledge.
No, but I mean, I just
No,
like
it's good.
there's. Let's just read scripture literal.
Yeah.
I think there are times when it's allegorical, but most of the time it's literal.
Yeah. Its leaves, verse 12. Its leaves were lovely and its fruit plenty, and in it was food for all. The beasts of the field found shade under it, and the birds of the heavens dwelt in its branches, and all flesh was fed from it. In the visions of my head, on my bed, I looked and saw a watcher, even a set apart one, coming down from the heavens.
This is interesting because watcher is not mentioned anywhere else. It's only in the book of Daniel, at least within the canon. And those of y'all, I know most of y'all have read Enoch. And Enoch is huge on the watchers, gives you a lot of understanding of the watchers. Watchers is just a class of angel. At least from what we know, there's archangels, seraphim, cherubim, ophanim, and watchers. There might be more classes, I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
But this is at least kind of, what we know, the classes of angels through Enoch. But the watchers I think we're seeing them today. I think we can see them today.
What do you mean,
Have you ever looked at,
Go ahead.
look at some videos on YouTube about people doing infrared views of the sky at night? And there are things, just unexplainable, moving things up there. Are these the watchers? I've been told my whole life, no, those are satellites. I'm not so sure they're satellites. We see these lights all the time, and you can go, we sit out, we have a fire pit, we sit out all the time at night, and you see these things crossing all the time. They could be satellites, I don't know, but I think they've always existed. I was seeing them even when I was a kid. I know satellites were around, but I was seeing them just as much. Now they're like, oh no, the reason we see them is because we have so many satellites today. I'm not so sure.
There's always a logical explanation.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
Scientific explanation.
Yeah. And if you look at any of this, the infrared or night vision that they use on the sky, there's just thousands of them. They're constantly moving across our sky, watching over us. Some are good, and I believe a lot of them are good, but 200 of them fell. There's possibly way more that have fallen.
Yeah.
But at least 200 of them have fallen in Enoch's time, and probably released somewhere around the 1800s. But go ahead.
Good. No, this is what we're
There's
doing.
way more to talk about on the Watchers, but we're just going to touch on it.
Okay. Verse 14, he cried aloud and said this, hew down the tree and cut off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts flee from under it, and the birds from its branches. But leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with the band of iron and bronze, and the tender grass of the field. And let it be wet with the dew of the heavens, and let this portion be with the beasts on the grass of the earth.
Okay, I gotta talk about.
Let me just finish this
Okay,
real
go
quick.
ahead.
Let his heart be changed from man's. Let him be given the heart of a beast, and 7 times pass over him.
Okay, so I think this is really interesting because Babylon, he's the king of Babylon.
He's
I
the
think
tree.
I think this definitely happens. We're going to see that this happens to him. So there's a literal explanation for this. He gets this dream, and this is what happens to him.
Yeah.
For 7 years. Okay, but I think there could be something more to this that we could read into this, and I'm just throwing out a possibility here that Nebuchadnezzar represents Babylon, and Babylon being driven to the wilderness for a time, and during this time he is wrapped with iron and brass, which I think is just interesting after we read after Daniel 2, because we learn in Daniel 2 that the brass is Greece and iron is Rome, possibly Rome. I do think it is Rome, but possibly Rome. Okay, so is it possible that Babylon was to be driven to the wilderness for a time, and then basically come back after the iron and the brass are destroyed? Is there a possibility that Babylon comes back? We read it's a fragment of Enoch where it talks about the phoenix coming back to take its severed heads, Behemoth and Leviathan, Behemoth being of, I might be saying that wrong, Behemoth being of royalty and Leviathan, I think it's the other way around, Leviathan being royalty and Behemoth being of liberty, the nation of liberty, which could possibly be America.
We talked about that last week, right? Or week
I
before.
think so, yeah.
We read that.
And the phoenix being, possibly Rome, but could it be that the phoenix is Babylon? Could it be Babylon coming to take over America, take over Britain, and this kind of being the new world order that they're trying to bring in? I don't know, just a possibility, just based on that. But I think there is something significant here. Babylon. So this Babylon, which is really interesting, we're going to talk a little more about the things that were going on in Babylon. It was introduced. There's some things with that kind of might be Babylon in Tartaria. Now Tartaria to me is the biggest mystery, because it's something they don't want us to know about. So what's up with that? Well, why aren't they letting us know? There's so many things with Tartaria and the things that were going on with the transhumanism, mixing animal hybrids with humans. That was very similar to what Ham was doing, and Cush and Nimrod, who started Babel, and ultimately down to Nebuchadnezzar. I think they were still doing it in Babylon. Some of these mixing of animals and humans, and I think we see that in Tartarian history as well. There's a reason we don't see these animals anymore. They kind of disseminate around the 1800s. We don't see them anymore. Now, there's a lot of people who still believe they exist. I do believe there are remnants of them, but there's a whole talk we could do about that.
And it's not like a spoiler alert. I mean, we know that ultimately he gets turned into, we'll talk about what we think he's getting turned into.
Sure,
but he gets turned into a beast. I was just thinking, is there any other king that this happens to?
I don't think so.
That actually, the prophecy is fulfilled with
Yeah, I can't remember, but
kind of along the same, to the point you're making,
how did this happen? I do believe Yah did it.
Sure.
To him. We're gonna get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But there is something with Tartaria and the mixing of animal hybrids. We read this in John Mandeville talks about it. IBN Batuta. I know it's a weird name, but
this is the weird history that you're talking about.
Yes, these are things that you have to search to find. There's so many other books, and also the letters of Prester John talk about that in the region of Tartaria, and also where the lost 10 tribes in Azareth are.
Maps show that.
Yeah, maps show that. This is in 2nd Ezra 13 or 14, 13 and 14, I think. But this is there was something going on in that region. And with these different animal hybrids, I think they were redoing this whole thing. And guess when Tartaria shows up on the scene? One of the groups in Tartaria is the Huns. The Huns were responsible, the Mongols were responsible for destroying Rome, at least according to official history. Now, I think Yah probably destroyed Rome, and then they kind of took over the remnant of Rome. But that's when they first show up on the scene, Rome being the iron. So when the iron was disseminated or destroyed, then all of a sudden Tartaria comes. And Tartaria rules for 1,000 years. They basically rule till about the 1500s, 1600s. And then they kind of slowly go away. And then, we mentioned this in one of our other videos, the Daniel study, that, I Googled, how did the Tartaria end? And all of a sudden it shows, I don't know how.
There's an answer for it.
There's an answer for it. Google says that World War II was the ending of Tartaria. What? World War II was the ending of Tartaria. So they did something in World War II that they were officially going to end this empire.
I feel like this is a future video.
Yeah, we need to talk more about it because there's so much into it. Why I believe that this is could possibly be Gog Magog as well. So, is it possible that Babylon, gets put in the wilderness for a while, upper regions, upper Russia,
What is
upper
now Upper
Americas, upper Canada, gets put in the wilderness for a while, and then after the iron and the brass is gone, the brass being Greece, the iron being Rome, they get to come back and rule. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
So, but this at least literally is talking about a specific time for Nebuchadnezzar. I'm just throwing out the possibility it could be talking about a time for Babylon as well. So
Future time.
future time or something that already happened. For
I meant
us, yeah.
future.
Future for them. Yeah.
Past for us, maybe. Okay. All right, verse 17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the command by the word of the set apart ones, so that the living know that the Most High is ruler in the reign of men, and gives it to whomever he wishes, and sets over it the lowest of men. This dream have I seen, I, sovereign Nebuchadnezzar, and you, Belteshazzar, reveal its interpretation, since all the wise ones in my reign are unable to make known to me an interpretation, but you are able, for the spirit of the set apart Elohim is in you. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was stunned for a short time. That's an interesting, little insight, I feel like. He was stunned. I didn't look at that word in the Hebrew to see what that actually means.
That is interesting, yeah.
And his thoughts alarmed him. I mean, it would alarm me too, because I'm thinking, in the world, is he going to be turned into an actual animal?
Yeah, well, I think, and that's why I think it wasn't just for him.
Yeah.
Like, I think he did experience it, Nebuchadnezzar, but I think there was something more meaningful to this dream.
Yeah, you're right.
And just like in the first dream in Daniel 2, Daniel's frightened when he sees the vision. He's like, oh my goodness, like what in the world? And so is Nebuchadnezzar. Because they knew there was some sort of deep meaning to it. Are you looking up that word?
I was just, you know me, I love words. I love looking
I think in
at
Daniel
words.
4, beyond is Aramaic, correct?
Astonished is the word. Yeah, my Bible says that Aramaic begins in chapter 2, verse 4, and ends at chapter 7. So
Okay.
this is all Aramaic right now. But it's got, obviously translates it in the Strongs. It says it means astonished, stunned, devastated, also stupefied. So probably he was just in utter shock, maybe. Which is different than other dreams that I think he had interpreted for King Nebuchadnezzar. So this is a big one. Like this is sort of
there's some meaning behind it. It wasn't
shook him.
Wasn't just like you're going away for 7 years. It's like, no, this is something bigger.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm still verse 19. The king responded and said, Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its interpretation alarm you. So he wasn't even worried about it. Belteshazzar answered and said, my master, the dream is to those who hate you, and its interpretation to your enemies. The tree you saw, which became great and strong, whose height reached to the heavens and was visible to all the earth, whose leaves were lovely and its fruit plenty, and in it was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and whose branches the birds of the heavens sat. It is you, O king, for you have become great and strong.
Okay, just something just to throw out there.
Yeah.
In Aramaic, the word for tree is Elon. Okay, just thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
Not that it has any deep root meaning, but it's interesting for that name. So.
It is you, O king, for you have become great and strong, and your greatness has grown and has reached to the heavens, and your rulership to the end of the earth. And as the king saw a watcher, even a set apart one, coming down from the heavens, and he said, hew down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and bronze and the tender grass of the field. And let it be wet with the dew of the heavens, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over him.
So, real quick, this 7 times is interesting because obviously we know he was for 7 years had to live as a beast in the wilderness. But if we go back what we previously said, 7 times that Babylon, from the time Babylon fell to the Persians, all the way from maybe the fall of Rome. I looked it up. I didn't write it down. So there could be some significance in there. I don't know. I think we should look into that. Is there a time when Babylon is to come back? If it's not back already, or if it has already happened, I don't know. I'm just throwing out an idea that this could mean that Babylon is to go away and then come back. Just an idea.
Yeah.
Because we get this throughout the prophets. I mean, always talking about Babylon in a way that has happened, but in a way that could happen again. or has happened again. And it could be referring to Rome. I don't know. I just kind of throwing out a question for everyone to kind of ponder, like, what if, you know? Something else that's interesting about these trees, you know, it's in Enoch 66:2, where it talks about the angels cutting down trees. It's also in 3rd Baruch. It's also in the Midrash of Shemaza, about Aziel. Aziel was cutting down trees. And I was trying to find the exact verse. I remember reading it where the angels came down and cut trees. I know some of y'all, if y'all know what it is, post it. Yeah, share it in the comments because I'd love to see it again. But the angels were cutting down trees. A lot of y'all have seen, you know, some of the, you know, some people on YouTube and wherever talking about, you know, what was it, Devil's Tower, where it looks like a tree. There's many others all across the world. It looks like these massive trees that have been cut by the angels. And so I do believe there were some pretty massive trees. I do believe there's still one standing. The tree of life is probably huge, wherever it is, you know, in the 3rd heaven, or if paradise is here on the earth, or if there are 2 paradises, I don't know. But you know, I'm sure there's a gigantic tree that has 12 kinds of fruit, each bearing its, you know, fruit in its season. So it's just an interesting thing. It's also, you know, I wrote down Ezekiel 31:18 and Ezekiel 31:1 and 2, talking about the trees being hewn down. So anyways.
Okay. All right, so here's the interpretation. Verse 24. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which has come upon my master the king. You are going to be driven away from men, and your dwelling be with the beasts of the field, and you be given grass to eat like oxen, and you be wetted with the dew of the heavens, and 7 times pass over you, till you know that the Most High is ruler in the reign of man, and that he gives it to whomever he wishes. And they that gave the command to leave the stump of its roots of the tree, your reign remains yours from the time you come to know that the heavens are ruling. Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you, and break off your sins by righteousness. Wow. And your crookedness is by showing favor to the poor, so that your prosperity might be extended. That makes me think of that verse in James where it says pure and defiled religion before Yahuwah is basically caring for the poor, caring for the widow, you know, caring for the homeless, the orphan. Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, we never, you know, we've read Daniel our whole life. You know, this is a Sunday school lesson, most of these Daniel stories. But, you know, it says break off your sins by righteousness. You know, sins, we know, 1 John 3:5. 1 John 3:5. Is that right?
I don't know what you're trying to quote.
John 3:4. Sin is transgression of the Torah.
Oh, okay.
So sin is transgression of the law. That's something I don't know how you get around. The law given by Yahuwah, if you transgress it, you're sinning. And so we don't want to sin, right? Most Christians, anyone agrees, let's not sin. You know, let's try to live a holy life. Let's live by righteousness. Psalm 119, 172 says the Torah is righteousness. So following of the Torah and the instructions, the commands, this is righteousness. It's been known by humanity since the beginning. Adam, being the first priest, was teaching it unto men. It's always been known. It has always been forgotten. The Torah is constantly given to man, constantly forgotten. Get re-given on Mount Sinai, then eventually forgotten with the judges and the kings, and then Josiah. You know, magically, you read about Josiah. He's renovating the temple and finds it. It's like, what do you mean he found it in the temple? Where they totally forgot about the Torah. And he's like, oh my goodness, and then they celebrate Passover. It's like they didn't know they were supposed to still be doing Passover. They completely left it and said, no, that was for the time in the wilderness. We don't have to do that anymore. It's done away with.
Sounds familiar.
All it was dispensational teaching and during that time. You know,
some
of these kings
we label it that now. It wasn't so fancy then.
Yeah, I mean, the dispensational teachers were in Jerusalem. It was some of the wicked kings who decided they wanted to worship Baal instead of Yahuwah and His Word. And you know, this is just all throughout history. You have these false prophets turning us from the commandments of Elohim. And look at us. We're waking up in the 21st century saying, oh my goodness, the commandments are forever. This instruction book that's literally been sitting on my nightstand for my whole life. I just actually cracked it open and read it. and started following it. It's amazing. And this is the way to life. This is how you break off your sins, Nebuchadnezzar.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you break off your sins and live by righteousness.
That verse is, I'm sorry, 1 John, I think you might have said it, is 3:4.
1 John 3:4.
Yeah,
Man, I need to remember that. I can't,
yeah, everyone doing sin also does lawlessness, and sin is lawlessness. I don't know, I was thinking about that too, break off your sins by righteousness. It also makes me think of what we talked about last week with the pruning. You know, like you're breaking off your sins. It's the same thing with sort of pruning a tree, right? We're breaking off the dead branches. I mean, kind of comparing ourselves to that, and the only way out is to put off the old self, put off the old sin.
And it hurts.
And it's,
it's painful sometimes because we can't, for whatever reason, we have trouble just immediately coming to Yah and saying, you know, Yah, I'll do whatever you say. You know, I mean, we've been in Torah for 7 years. We're still finding things that we're like, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And we're changing our lives. So we just, you know, made a change just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
You know, and just really trying to live a different life with something else that we found in our life that we didn't like. And it's constantly pruning, constantly trying to get closer to Yah. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is not working for our salvation. It's working because of our salvation. There's a big difference.
It made me think of something else. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Hold on. I think it's Proverbs, but it's in 1 Peter as well. Everybody probably knows where I'm going. Well, Peter says it, but he's quoting Solomon. I was falling asleep. Above all, have fervent love for one another, because love covers a great number of sins, covers a multitude of sins. So it's, you know, it's righteousness. He's talking about righteousness here, but it all comes back to love.
All comes back to love. Yeah. Nebuchadnezzar's being told, follow the Torah to cover your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor.
That's right.
That it may lengthen your tranquility.
Yeah.
We also were talking about the other day about lengthening of your days. And that was by love, by showing mercy, by having the fruits of the Spirit, by there's more to it, by not doing evil, not rendering evil for evil, railing for railing. I mean, there's some pretty amazing things within that, but there's this just comes back to what we were just talking about at the beginning of this video. There's more there's more to just keeping the Torah. Okay, there is no commandment in the Torah for not listening to rock and roll. Okay, I sound like an old man saying rock and roll. You know, that rock and roll music. But there's no command for that. There's no command not to listen to rap. There's no command for not cussing. There's no command for, I'm sure we could figure out so many other things. There's no command for not getting the, thing in your arm. There's no command for that. So what do? Do you just follow the Torah and that's it? No, there's more to it. The Torah should lead to a heart change, and the heart change should change everything about you.
That's right.
It's just instructions to get closer to Yah, to lead to a change of heart, a circumcised heart. And then beyond that, there's way more to be done.
Yeah.
This walk never ends until you're in the grave. This race, you keep running it to the best of your ability to get that prize, the mark of the high calling, to run that race. And there's so much more than just keeping Torah. And the Torah is the start. I mean, you've got to know the Torah is spirit and truth, right? That's what we were talking about. So we'll get on that tangent again. So let's go ahead and read.
Verse 28 is what we do. Verse 28, all this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of the 12 months, he was walking about. So this is 12 months after this vision was interpreted. Is that what that's saying? At the end of the 12 months, he was walking about the palace of the reign of Babel. The king spoke and said, is not this great Babel, which I myself have built, for the house of the reign by the might of my power, and for the esteem of my splendor? The word was still in the king's mouth when a voice fell from the heavens. King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the reign has been taken away from you. Boom, like that.
I think this is interesting because Daniel says, hey, turn to righteousness, feed the poor, that way you're lengthening of thy tranquility.
And maybe he did.
That's what I was saying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you can talk too. I was just like, I think that, I think he probably did. He was like, okay, Daniel, you're right. I'll start feeding the poor. And he did for probably a year. And then just like all of us, we stop feeding the poor. We stop doing the right thing. We get stuck in our ways or stuck in sin or something. And eventually pride snuck his way back in. And
this is happening to him time and time again. I mean, we're only in chapter 4.
Yeah, he constantly keeps turning to Yah. And,
well,
I think that after this, he's done, right?
Yeah, he is. He's done.
And we found something that he took his life after this.
I think that is in...
It's in Josephus.
Maybe. So this just made me think of, when we were reading this made me think of Isaiah 42:8, which says, I am Yahuwah, that is my name, and my esteem I do not give to another, nor my praise to idols. I mean, Yah humbles the proud. He does. We know that. We are probably each living examples of that. I'm a living example of that. I immediately, as I'm reflecting on this chapter, that's sort of my takeaway from it for myself, is because I have always been proud of vanity, which is kind of interesting because we just read Ecclesiastes and it's all about vanity.
Yeah.
It's all about futility of life and that none of this matters. But I've always regarded myself to be of good health, and unbeknownst to me, taken pride in that. And along the way, I think I've had little, we all have these little moments like Nebuchadnezzar did, where I was like, okay, all glory, it belongs to me. Don't give my glory to another. Don't take so much pride in yourself. Don't pat yourself on the back so much for, and you don't think, like you said this to me the other day, you don't think about being sick until you're sick. You don't think about how good of health that you're in until until something happens, until your health is taken from you. That's just my experience. I mean, you insert that into security of money. If you've got a lot of money and then you don't have a lot of money, you don't think about the fact that you're poor until you don't have money.
Yeah.
And I just think this is such, once again, this is an example, like you said, Daniel's for our example in so many ways. And Nebuchadnezzar is an example for us in pride, and to always, remain humble and of a lowly state. And all glory belongs to the Most High. Even, when you're in your lowest state, all glory goes to the Most High. But unfortunately, Nebuchadnezzar's learning a very hard lesson.
Well, pride is sneaky.
It's
not
very, you're right.
It seems to be very noticeable when you see it in someone else, or you see it in, Samael or something like that. You see, oh no, he's prideful, but it's you don't really see it in yourself, because a lot of times I think we justify it. I'm proud of this because I worked hard for this.
Yeah.
Or I'm proud of this because I've really been beaten down about this, and so I know that I'm right about this, or whatever it is. It's very sneaky, and so it's something that we have to constantly be on watch for. And like you said, Yah brought it to your attention. He's constantly bringing up things, just like we said. I mean, no one's perfect. We are not perfect at all. And though we do not eat pork, though we keep the Sabbath and we do certain things, there's constantly work to be done. And I think a lot of times people come into Torah movement, into Torah keeping, and think they've arrived. Look at us. We did. I mean, we got here. We got to Torah, and we're like, oh my goodness, we have wisdom now. Look at us, and we know what to do. And it's no, you don't. It really takes. It takes constant pruning, and we're still learning, still being pruned, still ridding ourselves of sin and things that have crept in our lives that we didn't even know about. And things that that Yahuwah is constantly just shining a light on. So it's amazing. But anyways.
But that's the thing, he walks around this kingdom, and I just keep coming back to, he's my power, look at my house, look at my kingdom, I mean, it's just it's oh my goodness, you've got so much pride. Stop. Haven't you learned your lesson?
You probably worked hard for these things.
Yeah, and I think that's at the end of a long day's work, and you kind of see all the hides that you've tanned,
the fruits of your labor.
You see the fruits of your labor, and you are proud of that. But like you said, it does sneak up on you, and it is sort of a fine line of being. We're proud of our children, I don't take pride in my children, but I am proud of my children. So it is a delicate balance, but it can quickly become a sin before you know it. Yeah. So, okay. What verse was I on?
We're so close.
What verse was I on?
32.
Okay. And you are driven away from men, and your dwelling is to be with the beasts of the field. You are given grass to eat like oxen, and 7 seasons shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High is ruler in the reign of men, and he gives it to whomever he wishes. In that hour, the word was executed on Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and he ate grass like oxen. And his body was wet with the dew of the heavens, till his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. I know we want to pause here.
Okay, so Yeah, I misspoke last week. I said he was turned to a donkey. I don't know why I said that because it's obviously he's not a donkey.
Yeah.
I feel like that had happened to somebody. Is that
Wow.
in scripture? I can't remember, but I think I miss.
Well, that's what I was just asking.
And what was he turned to? I mean, it's literally saying he had, you know, he grew
Was
feathers.
that Balaam?
It might have been. He grew feather. No, that's when the donkey's talking. I don't know.
The donkey's talking.
He grew feathers, bird's claws. I mean, what is going on here? And yeah, I do believe it was a curse from Yah. Something happened because he did something.
Yeah.
But I do believe there was some sort of like animal-human hybrid transhumanism kind of things that were happening during this time. And Babylon was big into this, and we even see like you know, this happened earlier with the Tower of Babel. If you read the book of Jasher, when Babylon was destroyed, when the Tower of Babel was destroyed, you know, Yah turned half of them into monkeys, half of them into
That's right. You're right. Yeah,
into
there's
elephants, elephant men,
Yeah.
all these crazy things, and we get a lot of these crazy creatures from this time, and they even trickle down into Egypt.
Yeah.
This is where we have Seneca Folly in Egypt. We also have half bird, half men people in Egypt. These aren't just statues. These are actual pharaohs that existed that had dog features or eagle features.
Yeah, so
and
it's not that uncommon.
it's not that uncommon. Actually, all the way up until the 1800s, these things were even being born by women. There were stories all across,
Yeah.
even in the Americas, of griffins being born, satyrs, and yes, that is a griffin. Satyrs being born, even here in the Americas, the centaurs being born
Yeah.
by women, and the same thing being born by horses, half human hybrids. So someone was messing with the genome, the DNA was being mixed at this point by Babylon, and I think it all goes back to Ham, and Ham received it, you know, the same teachings, the lineage straight from Cain. I mean, all of this came from Cain, and see, the Watchers were teaching these things. It's just something that keeps continuing throughout history. We're doing it today. I mean, they're mixing it today.
Yeah, I think they're probably doing it in labs, don't you think?
They
I
are.
mean,
No,
we
they're,
know
with
that
CRISPR technology and all these things, they
Yeah.
are doing it in labs, and we're going to eventually see that. We're going if we're not seeing it already with the you know, mRNA stuff. So we could be seeing it already, and
history repeating itself.
yeah, I mean, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just going to continue to happen, and it's going to be kind of common, you know, knowledge and common thing to see these kind of creatures
Yeah.
walking around. By the way, it's prophesied in many places that these creatures were to return. They were put up in the north by Alexander the Great. Alexander built the wall. There's some maps that show it's the wall of China, and some other areas where he built a gate. All these creatures were gathered up because they were evil, wicked inventions of men and put up there. These are all the crazy creatures Gog Magog being one of them. Giants, wild men, Seneca Folly, centaurs, all the crazy mythical creatures that we think are myth.
Yeah.
But there's history all throughout history of them. There's a book. This is actually a 3-part volume. It's called Edward Topsail's The Beast, the Four-Footed Beast. This was written in the 1600s. 1600s. This is an incredible book. It's insane. You know, it goes through here. There's all kinds of pictures that he drew himself. This is obviously a reprint. I would love to have the original. I'm trying to find a picture. I don't know, I just passed one. Anyways.
What is that?
Is that dogs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are just dogs.
I would love to have the original. You can look up on Internet Archive and see and read the original. It's all written in Latin. But
So, did you basically say you think he maybe was turned into a griffin? Is that what you said? And I missed it.
well, no,
Or you
well, I
don't
think
know?
it has, you know, griffin is
As the label.
part lion, part eagle. I just think they were mixing. There's also within this book that I just mentioned, there is an animal called the Sioux that was in Patagonia Mountains. By the way, Patagonia Mountains named after giants, the Patagonian giants, probably a Nephilim descent. So, you know, that clothing line called Patagonia, it's named after Patagonian giants. It's very interesting. So there's a whole rabbit hole trail we could go down in there. But
Yeah.
anyways, but there's something called a Sioux, which is a half man, half lion, half eagle's feathers on it. So it could be possible he's turned into that, eating grass. half man. Who knows?
Yeah.
But whatever's going on, he did something, in my opinion, he did something to his DNA that was going on in Babel. They were doing it in Babylon to better themselves, to probably live longer lives. And Yah was like, okay, I've had enough of you. You're going to suffer the consequences, the curse of what you just put in your blood. And then all of a sudden it happened, and so that's very interesting. I think this is probably coming back today if it's not already here. So it's just whenever Yah decides to let it happen. But like I said, there's tons of prophecies of this happening at some point in history, that all these creatures would be released on mankind. Man, that's a whole nother discussion. I would love to talk about that, because there's something with the tunnel that was dug in 2016. I can't remember the name of the mountain. Some of y'all remember they did this huge Masonic ceremony. And that tunnel is actually it's actually prophesied in the 1300s. That tunnel was to release these creatures back into the world.
The
Gothard-based tunnel. Yeah, it's in Switzerland. Yeah. I don't recommend watching that sermon, but any of y'all who have been watching this stuff since 2015 and seeing the blood moon tetrads and the solar eclipse and all these, you've been awake like, oh my goodness, the end is coming. You know this tunnel and the ceremony they did.
There's even an article here that says the oddest moments of the opening ceremony.
It was crazy.
That's from like BBC. That's a BBC article.
Yeah. So this was actually prophesied in
I don't know.
in the 1300s. Well, it's re-mentioned, but it's prophesied way back before then that someone would build a tunnel and release these things. They actually call the person the fox, would have the tunnel built. Who's the fox? That's interesting. Okay. All right, let's go back. I'm sorry.
No,
I totally went side.
So good. Okay, verse 34. And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes to the heavens, and my understanding returned to me. It's so good. And I blessed the Most High, and praised and made him great, who lives forever, whose rule is an everlasting rule, and his reign is from generation to generation.
Oh, wow. His rule is forever. And his reign is from generation to generation. It never ends.
Yeah. And I wish I had marked, like, every time that he comes back, or, returns from his sin, from his ways. But, something that I just noticed is, like, he's always talking about Yah or Yahuwah in terms of Daniel's, Ella. Daniel's El.
Yeah.
Not his El.
Coming back
but
to
right here at the end of his
Lord,
life, he blessed the Most High. It was all of a sudden, like, complete change.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of his life, he finally recognized the one true Elohim,
And we see this throughout history. We talked about this before. Is like these kings, these Gentile kings that are uncircumcised, Yah's using them.
Yeah.
And they're constantly turning to him. We have in the writings of Abraham, Pharaoh is getting circumcised and turning to Abraham's Elohim, which is the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the same Elohim we worship. And they're turning to him. Yeah. Pharaoh and all of Egypt turn to him. Then what happens? They forget Yah, they get destroyed. Then, you have just throughout history, Babylon being one of them, Nebuchadnezzar, Cyrus from Persia was called the Messiah in Isaiah. So he is a Messiah figure, the anointed, and he is used by Yah. Alexander the Great is prophesied. Actually, there's multiple places where Alexander the Great's praying to Yah. There's multiple letters written by him where he's praying to the Father. So he was used by Yah.
Yeah, sorry. Well, you were talking about not forgetting. There's something, I don't know what you just said, but you said something that made me think of the last verse in Psalm 119, where David says, I have strayed like a lost sheep. Seek your servant, for I have not forgotten your commands. That's the last verse of Psalm 119. If you don't know Psalm 119, or if you've not read it, read it with the eyes of, like, his laws are forever, because that's all that
everywhere.
David
We read that our
about.
whole life and never realized,
Yeah.
oh wow, it's saying the Torah is forever,
But
never
the
ending.
last verse of this is just that. He was like, I was a lost sheep, like we all are.
Yeah.
And Nebuchadnezzar, every single human being is a lost sheep, and we're just desiring, and Yah's just desiring for us to come back to him. Come back to the flock, come back to the fold. But we forget.
Yeah.
We forget Yah, we forget his commands, we forget his goodness, we forget his deliverance, we forget his blessings. And I've tried in my past to write things down, to write his blessings down so I don't forget. But there's always good in all of it, and ultimately, to see someone like Nebuchadnezzar come back to the Father and to basically, I don't know if he was still in this state, this beastly state at the end of his life. It was only for
He says
7.
understanding came back to him, so he could have still
Maybe.
looked. Did
Yeah.
he trim his nails and cut his feathers? I don't know.
I don't know. This was to last for 7 years, right? Is that what it says? Is that what we just
Yeah,
read?
or
7
7
seasons?
times,
Or I
7.
don't know what that, maybe was that 7 times?
7 times? I don't know.
I don't know. Anyways, but, okay, sorry.
Well, no, I think what you're saying is amazing because, there are so many people on YouTube, teachers, this is what they teach in seminary, that the law is done away with. Modern Christianity tells you the Torah is completely done away with. You don't have to follow those old customs, and those are Jews. Those are for the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
We are under the law of liberty, and this is what this is, and what it's don't believe them, because this is not a new teaching. This isn't something that we have figured out since we came to Christianity. No,
Are we
it's like,
is that true? Oh, that's your fault. Sorry.
no, this is something. This isn't something new. This is the teaching of the lawless one. Anyone doing away with commandments, that is a lawless teaching. Okay, and that's something we got to look to in our own lives. Like, the commandments are forever. This is mentioned constantly throughout the Torah, throughout the Pentateuch. It's forever. Throughout the prophets, even Yeshua himself, not one jot or tittle is done away with. These things are forever, no matter what. It doesn't matter what we think we read in Hebrews. Read the alternate translation of Hebrews 7.
Yeah.
But because I'm sorry, but a lot of these things have been
go ahead.
changed to try to get rid of the law. They're constantly trying to get rid of the law. They've been doing it since the beginning. Okay, the first law ever given was don't eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The first dietary law given. And what did Hasatan do? He said, "Hey, you can eat whatever you want. Everything is clean. Eat it. It's fine." This is why he said not to eat it. Did Yah really say that?
Yeah.
It's just like it's been happening since the beginning of time. What were you saying?
No, I just was thinking, this is, we're so like, this could be such a long video. You saying that made me think of like his rule is everlasting, but we mentioned this, I think, in another video in the Daniel study, that, and I think I read this from Psalm 119:89, forever, O Yahuwah, your word stands firm in the heaven. So not just his kingdom is forever, his word is forever, his instructions are forever, his king is forever, the King Messiah is...
Well, the word became flesh.
The word became flesh. Thank you.
Yeah, it's forever.
The word, it's an everlasting rule with an everlasting king, with an everlasting constitution, which is the instruction of the Most High forever. It's just so simple. It's so simple when you think about it like that. So I think that's important what you just said, though, to like shine a light on the fact that this isn't like something new that we've discovered. No, it's like the problem here are those that are teaching lawlessness. That's the problem. That's what John's trying to convey.
Yeah, the problem is
First,
man throughout history, and it keeps happening.
Yeah.
I just mentioned Josiah, and Josiah is waking up as a king in Israel and saying, "Oh my goodness, let's keep the Passover."
Yeah.
He finds the Torah and is like, "Oh my goodness, we forgot it." And so it's just like us waking up. We woke up in 2017 to the Torah. A lot of people woke up in 2020, and people are hopefully going to keep waking up to the commands. And we're already kind of seeing it that you wake up to the commands. I won't talk about
I know.
that. But anyways, okay, let's go. Let's finish this up.
I don't know. I feel the spirit moving this morning. I think this was going to be like, I don't know. I wasn't sure about this chapter and reading and all that, but I just feel the spirit. Okay. Verse 35, and all the inhabitants of the earth are of no account, and he does as he wishes with the host of the heavens and among the inhabitants of the earth, and there is none to strike against his hand, or to say to him, what have you done? At the same time, my understanding returned to me, and for the preciousness of my reign, my esteem and splendor were returning to me. So it was coming back to him. And my counselors and nobles sought me out, and I was reestablished to my reign, and excellent greatness was added to me. So that sounds like to me he returned maybe to his former self.
Yeah.
Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, am praising and exalting and esteeming the King of the heavens. Wow. For all his works are truth, and his ways right, and those who walk in pride he is able to humble.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we have to say anything else about that, but we can.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we've already kind of talked about the pride that comes in and how he humbles you know.
But then he restores.
Yeah.
You know, he is a good bookkeeper. You know, we said that. That's not
Yeah.
scripture, but that's something that means something to us.
It's prophesied to us.
Yeah, and so, you know, he is the great healer. He's the great restorer. And righteousness. I mean, how he restored to what he restored to Job, and how he restored to him. And Job, I mean, he was upright at heart. You know, there wasn't sin in his life, but I'm just saying, like, this is encouraging for me too, knowing that I believe he'll restore me, and he'll bless me. He's blessing me already through it. But like, what a good ending.
Like, you know, Azariah and Nael and Michelle
Even
said, even if he doesn't, he's still Elohim. He's still good.
He's still good.
You know,
Amen.
even if he chooses to not do it, because we know, you know, let y'all not be mocked. Whatever a man sows, that also shall he reap. We know we've sowed sin our whole life, and whatever we're experiencing, or whatever you're experiencing through trial, whatever, you deserve it. Unfortunately, we deserve it. Just like Nebuchadnezzar here, it sounds like he might have tried to make things right, and for 12 months he got to experience tranquility, and then he went back to sin and went back to pride, and what he got, he deserved, unfortunately, and probably not even what he deserved. I mean, we're not even,
we know what we deserve.
We're not getting what we deserve. There's been, you know, Yah's mercy endures forever. And so thankfully he's merciful, and thankfully he gives us what we don't deserve, which is by grace. He gives us blessings. We don't deserve blessings. We know what we deserve, and we haven't gotten that, and that's mercy. So, I mean, it's just amazing him showing his mercy, his grace towards us, and that while we were yet sinners, you know, Messiah died for us. So now we can be made whole, you know, Lamb who was slain to take away the sin of the earth, the sin of the world. We can be made whole and follow his ways, to seek righteousness. I said this before, when we talk about the kingdom being forever, we are looking forward to the kingdom. No matter if you believe, you know, pre-millennial reign, post-millennial reign, whatever you are, we're all looking for the kingdom, to be in the kingdom. And the kingdom is, the king's reigning and Messiah's reigning in the kingdom. It's forever, it never ends. Once you get there, you know, and you've been made incorruptible, you get to stay there. It's pretty amazing. I can't wait. That's what I want. That's my whole life. I desire to get there. But that is not a lawless kingdom. There is a law. There is not liberty to eat whatever you want. They don't eat unclean animals in heaven. They don't sacrifice unclean animals in heaven. That is the teaching of the lawless one. That is the abomination of desolation. They don't do that. So I know there's people watching this who are going to be, no, we don't keep the Torah. We're not supposed to keep the Torah. Wait a second. The whole thing about the millennial kingdom, if you're a preterist or whatever you are, whatever you might believe, the whole reason for the millennial kingdom is for the Torah to be kept here on earth, for righteousness to be established. That's the whole thing. If you read any of the prophecies, you know, sacrifices are happening in the millennial kingdom. Sukkot's being kept in the millennial kingdom. If the second Exodus and millennial kingdom are coexistent, if they happen together, which I think they probably do, that is to happen on Passover. So, I mean, these are things that...
Not on Christmas or Easter.
Yeah, these are things that we have to have a knowledge of the Father's ways. This is how we know him. You know, 1 John...
2:3.
1 John 2:3. Yeah, easy as 1, 2, 3. You know, to know Elohim is to keep his commandments. Yeah. And you have, you know, Messiah saying in Matthew 7, you know, depart from me, you workers of lawlessness, I never knew you. Yeah. You want to know Messiah? Well, first you got to believe in him. And first you got to believe who he is and what he stands for. He is not a lawless king. He is not our lawless Messiah. He can't be Messiah if he didn't follow the Torah. We are to walk like he walked. So, you know, you said this at the very beginning. We talk about millennial king. We talk about a lot of like crazy things that I love this insane stuff because the Bible is so crazy. It's so wild. It's like the coolest book.
I was about to say it's the coolest book.
It's the coolest book in the world. And
I
it
never
changes.
said that until 7 years ago.
I know, it changes. You'll read it. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, dig into this word. We love to talk about that crazy stuff. But the number one thing,
the heart of the matter.
The heart of the matter, yeah. The whole duty of man. Fear Elohim and keep his commandments. That's it. You know, fear Elohim and keep his commandments. And he has a command, believe on my only begotten son. Okay? So there's a lot of commandments, there's a lot of things we should be doing, but that's the whole duty of man. Just start doing it. You know? It's pretty amazing, pretty easy. His burden is light, you know? It's not hard. It's amazing, you know, and there's blessings to be enjoyed from it. And if you don't keep it, there's curses to have. Would you rather the blessing or the curse? He just says, choose this day the blessing or the curse.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. All right.
All right. Bye.
Shalom.
Shalom.